It is. And then again, you apply technology to it. You don't do
Yeah.
it by putting Word documents in a shared drive and people trying to find it. There are systems today that are intelligent enough for you to type a few words and they will give you the things that you are looking for. And in a few clicks, you will find all of the information. So the knowledge base and the technology you use to enable people to find the information they need when they need it, it's also critical as part of any system. To give you a practical example, this role that King was hiring for, that they were looking to do, but in the end they didn't because something changed in the business, but all the pool of candidates and the interviews and the feedback was there, immediately pops up and becomes required in some other team, some other place. And basically there is no more work that the recruitment team needs to do because most of the process has been done and you can just grab wherever that process was left and pick it up. It's not like that happens every day, but accumulatively that becomes a huge cost efficiency.
Your company, King, is probably most famous, and this is just someone from the outside, is most famous for the Candy Crush Saga game. Is that a game like all hands on the table? Is that a game that you found yourself as addicted to as most people?
Oh, I would have to say yes. For some time, I have given up now. At least for I don't play it as often as I used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got me hooked for some time.
And was there any? Because I know you've done like a whole bunch of other games as well. Was there another one that took your fancy over and above Candy Crush?
Oh yeah, there are others that are quite successful as well. Not as known as Candy Crush.
Yeah.
But we have Pet Rescue, Farm Heroes.
Yeah.
And there are others. But yeah, Candy Crush is our biggest franchise, and it has the original Candy Crush Saga, and then Candy Crush Friends, Candy Crush Soul. There are many.
Yep. All the iterations.
It's still very, very popular.
Because I can imagine if I worked at a company that was like producing games like that, I'd be like, I'm doing user research. This is like, I'm just helping them out. But no, awesome. So before we dive into our conversation for today, I have a couple of questions that you couldn't prepare for. They're just rapid fire questions to give us some insight into who you are. So they're very simple. Don't think too hard about them, and just sort of answer what comes to mind. So the first one there, after a really tiring day, how do you spend your evening?
It depends on the day. I usually try to exercise a bit so I can release all of that stress of the working day. Sometimes I release the stress by exercising. Sometimes I play some video games. It depends. Depends on how much energy I have after.
And what's a really good book that you've read
recently? I read a great book about how to look at your career from a third one, an outside perspective, not as as a manager, as a colleague, but someone who doesn't know you. How to that critic view can help you identify things that you could change and improve on.
Interesting. And what is something that you wish existed but doesn't?
Teleportation.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Agreed.
The power everyone wants, right?
Yeah. And do you take tea or coffee?
Used to take coffee, now I take tea.
And what is something that you're glad you said no to recently, and why?
Good question. Something I said no to. I said no to going on holiday with someone I really want to go to.
Cool. We'll just leave it at that. And what is one thing that cost you less than 50 euros, but was the best investment most recently?
Plenty of those. I would say a good meal. I enjoy that. So there are many of those, and for less than 50 euros, you can have a really good meal.
Awesome. On that, thank you so much for participating. That was a really fun little intro. And yeah, welcome to the podcast, Agustin. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
So we're going to chat a bit about King as a company, and your role as sort of like director of technology operations and people analytics. But we hear from many CTOs and tech hiring managers how hard it is to balance hiring with what they consider their main job, which is building great products. And last time we spoke, you were telling me about sort of what you called a transformation in how you were thinking about HR and how it's enabling your HR team to work better with your hiring teams. However, you were working on this before COVID-19 became a reality. So it unintentionally had many benefits in the current environment where teams are working more remotely and teams rely more on technology than they did before. So just before we dive into that in particular, could you just give some context into like the history of King and also some insight into your role, and then use that as a way to talk about this challenge that you were trying to solve?
Absolutely. So King started back in 2003. That was a long time ago, but it didn't really started to grow until 2011, 2012. That's when King launched a game called Bubble Witch, which was very successful, and the predecessor to our biggest franchise, which is Candy Crush. I joined King in 2013, right after that growth started. We were about 300 people in 4 locations. Then in 2014, we IPO, we went public. And then in 2016, we were already 2,000 people in 11 locations. So you can imagine that we increased our headcount by 500 per year. That's massive growth. And it was fun times. But what also happened in 2016 is that Activision Blizzard, the American gaming company, acquired King for $5.9 billion. That was quite an event. In the beginning, the enterprise decided that we would continue to operate as independent companies, but there were overlaps, as you can imagine. So we started to look at ourselves not just as King or Activision Blizzard anymore, but as ABK, Activision Blizzard Inc. With that, we started trying to find ways to synergize, to do things better as an enterprise and start working such independently. You can imagine that there were duplicate teams, different philosophies around how to manage people cycles, like performance management, like compensation, like talent, or even policies different. So it was virtually impossible to be that ABK family, even though the title was there, the operation was still in the So Activision and Blizzard are originally PC and console gaming companies. King was mobile. So there was a lot of opportunity there for sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. But we were not set up for success. So that is kind of the context of that transformation that I mentioned before and where we want to get to, because that was the initial state and we're going through the transformation now to become ABK.
And what is that transformation from an HR perspective? What was some of the stuff that you were trying to disrupt or change?
Well, I mentioned before those people cycles. Basically, if you look at the opportunities that this merger will give us, it's all about talent, right? It's about the different experiences that all these employees have gained throughout the years that they were not sharing with each other. So how can we make that happen? How can we enable that collaboration, which will create new ideas for new games and allow the company to continue to grow? So that is the HR role, to enable those people to talk to each other.
Yeah. And what we said last time, and this is sort of like what we're going to zoom into in today, is that sort of challenge had an effect on like your hiring teams and how your tech managers had to hire. So could you just tell me, like, why was that an important thing to address from an HR team's perspective? Like, why is that challenge with tech managers who are hiring and hiring teams a valuable thing for you from an HR team perspective?
Well, first, because there were situations where we were competing with each other for talent, right? We were looking for similar experiences, and basically we were not all fishing from the same pool. So the from the hiring perspective, if you have shared pools and shared pipelines, everything changes, everything grows exponentially. Um, at the same time, we it's not about just creating new ideas, it's about adapting current ideas to the new world. For example, we have this big franchise in Activision called Call of Duty, as probably a lot of people know, that was not a mobile. And we could definitely benefit from some people that were expert on mobiles, like King is, going and sharing their experiences in Activision.
Yeah.
About how to put a game on a phone that usually play on a console or on a PC. So sharing talent is key, and that HR plays a key role there as well.
I think what's interesting, and you mentioned this last time, so maybe you can just dive into that a bit more, is that often, as you just said, HR is key in that, in setting that up, making sure that those systems work. Yet HR is often just seen as doing this administrative role.
Yeah, well, that's a stereotype that all HR people have been trying to get away from lots, from the beginning of times, I guess. But there are a lot of companies that have already managed to move away from that and have HR sit at the table, be a lot more strategic, and have a voice at every level. I would say that one of the reasons why HR in some places is still seen like that, it's the non-leverage of technology, because all of those admin tasks, someone needs to do them, right? And managers and people working on the product that the company sells usually don't want those people that are creative, that can produce, that are working on that product, working on admin activities. Now, someone needs to do it, but why does a person need to do it? When today you have so many different ways to move forward those processes without that much human intervention. So because HR was mainly hand-holding the business in these processes, they're usually seen as administrative. But if you have the buy-in from the business and from the senior leadership to apply all the technology available to automate and streamline and make those processes a lot easier and potentially self-service, then HR has a different role to play.
Absolutely, and I really like that the way you phrased it just now, that streamlining this process and using technology actually finally to automate a lot of the stuff lifts that the admin work out of or off the shoulders of HR and enables HR to use their expertise. And by having that mind share freed up, you can now put HR and a tech manager or a hiring team together, and that collective experience there can really drive forward the way you look for talent. And as you said, you're now you're not competing anymore, you're sharing talents, which that obviously, or at least seemingly, has a huge impact on how you hire successfully and the kind of tech talent that you then get access to.
Yeah, and it's hiring. It's the initial step, but then you have to maintain that talent. You have to keep it engaged, and you have to keep it challenged, and you have to keep it keep those people happy working in your company, in your team. So HR can add so much value in those situations where by doing the admin for them, there is no value added activity. That's basically wasted experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a really cool point, just to dive in a little bit more to what that technology or that technological solution that you're using is. So how are you solving the automation and the streamlining from a technology perspective?
Well, there are different ways to approach it, but as any technology, any system doesn't solve for behavioral problems or philosophy problems you may have. So one thing, it needs to be very clear to people when they start when they start this journey of transforming the business in HR in particular, is that it needs a robust, strong, well thought change management program that will go along with the new technology. Putting the technology in place wouldn't solve anything. It was just, repeat the same behaviors, and people will find ways around that system to continue to do the things the same way they used to. So the technology piece is critical, but you need 100% a change program tied to that solution. So while we change the technology, we change the behaviors. So in terms of the tools itself, if we look at recruitment in particular, you can have an ATS, an applicant tracking system, as we call it, the typical recruitment system, but that usually helps you with the recruitment process when you more or less have found the top candidates that you like, and you start engaging with them and trying to understand who's the best fit for that role. But there is a lot more before that has been done manually so far by recruitment or HR that has lots of technological solutions. So right now we're going through a process where we are looking at our applicant tracking system, but we are also looking at the CRM, customer relationship management system, which will allow us to not just apply technology to recruit someone, but to actually find the right candidates, to fill our pipelines and our pools of talent with the right candidates. So the managers can decide which ones they like the most, and then we can tell them about the role and hopefully hire them later. But the combination of the CRM and the ATS, it's critical, because right now all companies have one or other recruitment systems, but very little companies have a CRM or are leveraging the CRM that they have. And that is critical these days.
What difference does that make? Why is that so important?
Basically, because you will be fishing from a smaller pool. That is the honest answer. If you can have an army of sources, right? That are scrapping LinkedIn, are scrapping all job boards available out there, trying to find the right talent. But in the end, you cannot, massify your headcount and have, that much fixed cost in there and expect, and still maybe not be looking in all the possible places to find the right candidates and those superstars that are going to change your business. But if you apply technology, and there is, there are tools out there that right now apply artificial intelligence to, they match the roles and the skills you're looking for that role, and they scrap the network for all possible candidates, giving you ratings and places where you can go, and that is just with the click of a button. So it's so different right now, and it's so advanced, and it's still so unknown for so many people.
Something which I wanted to ask you about as well, when we were talking about the way that automating frees up a lot of the expertise in HR, from a recruitment perspective, what are some of those expertise that you think are so critical to be freed up by technology? Like what does that technology enable an HR person to do more?
Well, one thing that the tools and the technology cannot do is to confirm whether or not these candidates are the right cultural fit for your company, right? That's something that at least I haven't seen an algorithm for yet. But those people know the business, those recruiters and those hiring managers know the business, know the teams they're going to be working with, know the leaders they're going to be working with. They know the challenges that are coming ahead for your business. All that context that it's very difficult, at least today, to put in on a system. So the technology can give you as much these days, but the expertise that someone with the history of the company, with the knowledge of your structure and your challenges and your business objectives can give you, it's invaluable, and it's that you cannot find in any system.
So in other words, the contextual knowledge of like culture and broader, I guess, business values, maybe that's a good way of putting it, that sits in HR, and they are like valuable to bring that to the table.
It sits in HR for sure, but it sits in the business as well. We expect the business to be, driving those values as much as HR is, and that is what it's key. So, how do you maintain a standard in the quality of the hires you bring into the company? You can either make 1,000 interviews per role, or you can make sure that you have the right amount of interviews, but then each one of the interviewers has a focus area, and it's looking at a specific skill or behavior or value that you're looking in the candidate that you want to hire. So if you have that process a bit more structured than what it currently is, plus beforehand applying the technology, which will help you find those superstars that you're looking for, then in the end you get with very high quality candidates.
Right. So I'm thinking like a tech manager who's busy hiring, they might respond and say something like, if those systems and those tools like the CRM and the ATS are there, like I can just go through a list of the people and find someone I want. Like I don't need to work with HR to do that. What would you say, or how would you respond to that?
Well, you can certainly see that as a future. I would no, I don't want to lie there. These tools are moving forward and becoming more sophisticated. That when in time, you might think that you can even make recruitment self-service for managers. Now, you have to have very disciplined hiring managers that play by the book, that they don't just care about their small work, but have a bigger context of what's coming and what's happening, and that's thinking about team salary parity and diversity and all those things that usually HR is the voice of conscience in the recruitment process.
Right. So in what stage of the solution are you in at the moment? Like implementing the CRM and ATM integration, ATS?
We are in the middle of it. We have moved to our new ATS recently, and we are in the middle of implementing the new CRM.
So just to illustrate like what it looks like, could you maybe give me an example of an experience you've had through that process that sort of shows the impact or exemplifies the impact that this kind of streamlining and automation has on your hiring process?
So there are different opportunities. You have to, it all depends in whether you are a small company with, just a few locations, or if you're a bigger company with more locations. But usually these projects allow you to reshape the way those small siloed teams work. But you cannot have this level of technology if you don't have consistency and harmonization across your different teams. So if you have, if you're a company that has 3 or 4 locations, it's very likely that those recruitment teams are following different steps, different workflows, doing things their own way. There are always legal constraints in each country and each location that you have to be aware of, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have a streamlined, harmonized process globally. That is one of the first steps, and that is one of the key milestones of the change program. You cannot leverage the new technology if you don't consolidate first.
Right. So how do you even begin to consolidate? How do you think about that behavior?
Well, first you need to put a project team in place, and you need to give those teams resources and a voice and sponsor in senior leadership. As we all know, if you don't have the buy-in from the senior leadership and it doesn't come from the top bottom, those managers or those recruiters or whoever is, it's right there in their comfort zone doing things they believe are the best way possible, and that one are not going to be willing to change. So you need to put that project team in place. You need to give them resources. You need to communicate that change is coming. but you cannot enforce change. You need to sell it, and you need to answer that question that everyone will ask: what's in it for me? How is this going to benefit? So you start by doing that, and that's when you uncover, and you open Pandora's box, and you find all these different things that people are doing, and you start asking yourself if it was the right decision to do this, but in the end, it's worth it. It's really worth it.
And how do you, do you have some examples of the kinds of things you said when people have asked that, like in your own case, in your own transformation? Like, how do you know what someone wants, or how do you sell it to them based on like what's in it for me?
Well, I start asking about their daily jobs and their challenges. I start asking, what do you complain about every day? What is it about this process that usually stucks? What is it about this process that usually creates delays? What do you hate about it? And then I will go back to my team and try to find solutions for them. And then the minute I show them that I can solve these things that they have been complaining about for years, but no one has really done anything about it, they're sold and they're just on board.
Right. So given some of those things, like, could you tell me about what the impacts of the solution has had on your HR teams and your hiring teams? Like, what are some of those pains that have been alleviated?
Yeah, that's still to be measured, right? Because we haven't gone through the complete implementation, and haven't had the chance to actually work with the tool completely to measure its performance. But I can already see, truth is that any senior leader will care about cost efficiencies, and there are many cost efficiencies that you will uncover by going through this process. There are opportunities that create for people. This creates a lot of mobility opportunities and exposure to processes and to teams and to businesses that before were completely shut down for some people. So, and this creates developmental opportunities for people who are part of the project. You don't have to hire a consultancy company all the time to do these things, or you don't have to have a specific tech team to implement it. You do need some experts, but then if you have the availability and the buy-in from the business, you need to bring people along for the journey, ask them to be part of that project, to implement it with you, because in the end, they are going to be the champions and the sponsors that will have to go back to the rest of the business and sell it. So again, like I said at the beginning, the tool is important, but it's an accessory to the actual change program that needs to happen all around it.
Right. Yeah, I think the way you were talking about even if the tool is there, there's no guarantee that people's behaviors will change. Like, that is something you have to work very deliberately and intentionally on. And I think, to your point, having that change program in place and actually going through the effort of assigning a team whose main concern is how do we work on this change program is a valuable investment.
Absolutely. This is a full-time job. You cannot ask people to still do their BAU roles and their jobs, and then as well do this massive transformation and expect it to be successful. So you need a dedicated team, but then just the core team. The rest can be managed depending on your timelines and how fast you want to go and do this transformation. You can include people from the business and have it as a side project. But you need to be mindful of people and really care about them and make sure that what you are doing is something that is valuable.
And you mentioned cost efficiencies. Why is there so much cost efficiency in automating and using tooling and technology?
First thing I would say, it's time. Time to hire reduces dramatically because you are leveraging business experiences, technology. To give you a practical example, this role that Kim was hiring for, that they were looking to do, but in the end they didn't because something changed in the business. But all the pool of candidates and the interviews and the feedback was there. immediately pops up and becomes required in some other team, some other place. And basically, there is no more work that the recruitment team needs to do, because most of the process has been done, and you can just grab wherever that process was left and pick it up. It's not like that happens every day, but accumulative, that becomes a huge cost efficiency. But time in general, when you consolidate processes, it's something that you could, if you want, start measuring. If you have kind of some advanced recruitment teams that are working in silos, which have time to hire metrics and other ones, and then you can compare before and after. But it's very likely that if you have to go through this transformation, you won't have that sophistication of there. But I can guarantee that the time you will save to get the right people in, to identify internal talent for internal projects. So recruitment is not just external, as we know, it's also internal, and the internal hiring is as critical as the external. And those things will just explode and become immediately available, when before it was like, who do I talk to if I want to know if at this company, at this team, at this location, they have someone for this? It all becomes immediately available. You can just, a couple of clicks, you find that you know who to talk to, and you can, close your role in a matter of days.
So my assumption here is that having this actually, like having tooling like that actually encourages and enables HR to work closer with hiring teams. Like it actually brings those two close together, doesn't it?
Well, it has to. It wouldn't work otherwise. Like I said before, there are, you ask, well, do we really need HR then, if these technologies, these tools do everything for them? And then in the end, hiring managers can just go to a list of the top 5 and pick from them. Yes, we do. Because there's a lot of contextual things that, like you put it, that are not yet quantified in those systems. HR needs today diversity is a hot topic. It's critical. The equal pay and the equal opportunity, same. So all of these things that HR needs to be looking after are things that I don't see being replaced by technology anytime soon.
Something you mentioned earlier was this idea that this merger has meant this merger between Activision Blizzard and King have meant that you've had to put a lot of effort into a very holistic and successful sort of merger process. How does this technology solve that problem? Like, what are some of the, or maybe even we can talk about it from a, like what we were just saying, some of the benefits where it's like cost efficiency and that there's development opportunity. Why is that particularly important for when you're in a position like yourself and you've got this incredible scale of people all sort of joining one group?
Because, well, at least, I can say this for my industry, but there are a lot others that are similar. We live in an industry, we are in an industry that moves at an incredible pace. It's shifting directions all the time. And everyone in the company knows it, and they know that we need to be ready to adapt and to shift and to be there and not be left behind. So all of these improvements or changes that we're planning to do, like I said, are aimed to save time, to improve how we do things, to give clarity to people, so we do things in one way globally. So if someone moves from one company, one location to the other, they don't have to learn new processes. If you're a manager, you do the same way everywhere. And those things save time. And when you save time, that means that you are ready to adapt when things go sideways. And like I said, the gaming company and games in general are, so an innovative industry. It's before, a few years before, or even a year before Fortnite, for example, Battle Royale didn't exist, and we were just playing Call of Duty and subscriptions, and suddenly free to play became the norm, and business needed to shift. And now Activision launched this product, Call of Duty, which is amazing for Warzone, and people are so happy with it. But that demanded lightning speed transformation and action. And if we weren't a company that was used to it and didn't have the technology in place to make that happen, we will have been left behind. And that applies as well to the current world situation. So COVID hit everyone in their heads, and no one was ready for it. And then some companies were ready to adapt, and some companies were not. And you can see that everywhere. So this transformation that we're going through is going to allow us to be even faster and better prepared for anything, any circumstances or events as the ones we just described.
Yeah, and I really like the way. So just to summarize some of that into a little bit of like a paragraph, I guess. But the time it saves, and also I think there's an element of like by streamlining all of this into a system or into tooling, you're taking it out of the minds of the people. So you're less reliant on those people always being there. So as you said, it's easier, to future-proof, because you don't have to worry about, maybe they leave and then the system's gone, or if someone new joins, it's very easy for them to pick it up. But also by taking that very rote and systematized stuff out of someone's, I guess, to-do lists, they can now put all of that energy and expertise into actually hiring a person based on the things that technology can't decide. So you end up exponentially, as you said, exponentially speeding up your process, and you're relying less on people to do the very, like I said, rote systematized stuff, and forcing HR and hiring to be a lot more deliberate about the way they collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's we need to be completely clear here. It's not a flip of a switch, right? It doesn't happen from and it takes time for people to accept that those new ways and that transformation. But what you have to do from a change perspective is not just about communicating the change and selling the change, but also the systems, even though they are a lot better than what they used to be, they are not yet talking to you and basically doing things and showing to you everything you need to do and with one click. So people needs to be enabled, and you need to give people those tools, and you need to give people the in-time training or on-time training, as we call it, instead of rolling a change programs and bringing everyone to a room for 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour session one time where you roll out this change, and then they don't do it until 6 months later, and they completely forgot about it, and they have to ask about it again. You need to apply technology in the way you roll out change as well. So on-time training, it's a key part of this transformation project for any tools. And it's basically when people have the need to do something that they don't know how to do, how do they immediately access the information they need to understand the steps to follow. So it cannot be a different system. It cannot be a different tool. It needs to be exactly that. Hey, I need to hire for this role. Let's think about it. I'm a hiring manager. I need to hire for this role. I don't know what to do. So I either can ask someone to do it for me, or maybe I'm a bit self-sufficient. I want to learn, and I say, hire a new role. The minute I enter that system or that database and I hire a new role, I need to have the knowledge articles that are very well written, that are simple, that are clean, that give you step-by-step guide of what I need to do. And if I don't know still what to do by reading them, I need to have a link where I can go to that will give me the exact answer Now, like I said, that's on-time training. It's exactly what I needed when I needed. Before or after, doesn't matter.
Right. And I guess that's, that sort of speaks to as well why this is so important when you have incredible scale like you do, or your teams are working remotely. That like that kind of on-time training is more so and even more important than it would be otherwise.
It is. And then again, you apply technology to it. You don't do it by putting Word documents in a shared drive and people trying to find it. There are systems today that are intelligent enough for you to type a few words and they will give you the things that you are looking for. And in a few clicks, you will find all of the information. So the knowledge base and the technology you use to enable people to find the information they need when they need it, it's also critical as part of any system that you want to become, that you want to make more self-service and automated.
And there's maybe a controversial question that I wanted to ask, just based on something you said earlier around diversity. I think a lot of people are wary of systematizing like the sourcing or the finding tech talent thing because of the difficulty in still maintaining unbiased diversity and stuff. Because even though it's an algorithm, you tell the algorithm what to do. What are your thoughts on that, and how does that feature in the sort of tooling that you're using?
Yeah, no, that's a huge problem, but that's why I said before, Jamiro, those are areas where we see the value of HR still lasting for a long time. I don't think that's something that will be solved anytime soon. But, we know what the world looks like today and where those systems are created, and there are a lot of biases still to overcome. So that is the perfect example where HR can still add value and should add value.
So then, what is the single most impactful thing that you've heard? And I know you're still sort of busy experiencing or reaping the rewards of setting this up and implementing this infrastructure, this tooling. But what is some of the stuff you've heard from tech hiring managers, if any, about this process and how it's helping them?
So like I said before, we had different systems, different processes, and as the integration across APAC happens, they found themselves that they had to, for their own teams, where they had to hire for different companies, have to go through different processes. So the harmonization, the doing things in one way, the consistency, the speed are the things they value. And in the end, what hiring managers value the most is that they get the talent they want, as they get the positions they have open as soon as they can. So that's the bottom line. They are on board because we are showing them that the effort that will take to go through this transformation in the end will reward them with them not having to wait that long to have their teams fully staffed.
And especially for someone whose main job is not to sit on LinkedIn and scrub talent, that's like a huge draw card. That it actually helps them worry less about the finding people and more about working with HR to then, from the people that have been found, to then pick someone that's a right fit for the role and the culture, which is really cool. So then, just as the last point, for you personally, what has been one of the most surprising outcomes of this transformation, just based on your experience in the industry, I guess, and your time at King and now ABK?
I guess that few things. One is that the world has moved on, and then before you had a system, a solution for different. You can have HCM for an HRIS, ATS for recruitment, for learning, or for whatever you need. You have a solution in place that used to last 5 to 10 years before someone else came in and disrupted that and came up with a brand new idea that was made sense for the company. So you go through that process where you decommission one system and you go to another. Now that has all accelerated, and and new technologies, new ideas, new vendors, new companies come up with these innovative ideas that make you think. I just implemented this system, this tool, and now this other company came up with this, and I really like it, and actually would really fit my what I want to do. So what do I do? And that is, the shift that is happening has been happening for a long time now, and I think that most companies are there now. But the shift from on-premise to cloud, that means systems that were fixed, that were installed in your servers, to systems that are on the cloud that can deliver iterations and improvements to the technology and the functionality that you get. But the surprise bit is that I found that when we went out there to search for vendors, is that there are so many new ones that are doing these amazing things, and I would like to try them all, but you can't. So I think that the HR system suite technology is moving a lot faster now, and it's becoming more and more creative, and it's adapting to what the workforce, the new young workforce, is looking for right now. So I see this as a continuous transformation cycle that will not stop.
It sounds like it's for HR teams, it's sort of a get involved or get left behind kind of scenario.
Exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I was going to ask about the opportunities for HR, but I mean, that sort of answers the question beautifully.
It does. And again, the a lot of companies still outsource their HR tech teams or their HR operations, and that can be useful for some models, but not for others. And if your employees and your company really value the how your employees' engagement and how they interact with each other and how they interact with HR and the level of service they provide. In the end, considering wider context, considering what that if you have an outsourced team, that's to turnover, to engagement, to involvement. In the end, in the long run, it's cheaper to have it in-house, and it works better. So that is something I have believed for a long time, and I sustain it because I have not seen it work that good in many other models.
Very, very interesting and exciting. I think you put it like this earlier, but there's like a Pandora's box of things that we could talk about. That's very exciting. But awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your insights and sort of like giving a look into how HR and hiring and recruitment can all be transformed and improved. And I think specifically now where people have to rely on technology more as more companies are embracing remote work, and as if you are open to remote work, your talent pool like 100x's. So it's not just the recruitment game has changed, and there are new rules. So it's cool to see how a company like yours is adapting to that. And also, as you said, with the merger and the scale and everything, you're probably still going to uncover a whole bunch of more stuff that you could do going forward. So thanks for giving us a piece into that, Agustin. It's really cool to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Dumar. It was great to talk to you.